the rock, paper, scissors dynamic, and how to be one step ahead of your opponent. Let me give a quick disclaimer here. This concept is very advanced and can be very difficult to implement, so I recommend that you work on the other factors that I mentioned so far first before tackling this area. You will only be able to apply this when you know how to do every movement and every attack with a purpose behind it. So with that in mind, let's go. This concept is very known in other fighting games like Smash Bros, for example, and what's the other one fucking called, man? Yeah, Street Fighters, but it was never discussed in the brawlhalla scene. If you can learn and apply this concept, you will have the ability to counter every single playstyle in the game. I'm not even fucking exaggerating here. I'm gonna explain how this works, okay? Starting off with the first playstyle, which is the aggressive play. An aggressive player goal is to push towards the opponent to apply a lot of pressure and be the first one attacking without allowing the opponent to have a break, and overall try to have control over the pace of the game. So, who do you think is the best candidate to counter this playstyle? It's obvious, right? It's passive players. Passive players' goal is to create a distance, wait for the opponent to come towards them, and then attack. They throw out a wall kind of moves, such as these examples you see on screen right now, to prevent you from going any forward. So what can you do in this situation as an aggressive player? We cannot go towards them, otherwise we risk getting hit, and we can't play passive because there's nothing to wait for, you know, since passive players never really approach first, and you don't want to play in 8 minutes games anyway. So how do you counter them? The best way to do that is by acting as if you're going forward, but then you don't. Meaning, you bait them into thinking that they are in threat, and if they don't attack, they will get hit. So they will panic, throw an attack, miss, and finally, you punish. This is called patient play, where the goal is to create an opportunity by baiting and applying pressure, so that your opponent miss or make a mistake, and then you punish. You can also attack when you see your opponent is in a bad position, meaning it's an opportunity, just like, for example, them being at the edge, for example, or jumping, you know. So you punish their movement instead of punishing their attacks. And how do you beat patient play? By being aggressive. If your opponent is trying to bait you, and more often than not they approach with movement, like, for example, dash front, dash backwards, with the goal of baiting, then why don't we attack where they're gonna dash back to, and catch the movement instead of panicking? Aggressive works against patient plays because unlike passive players, there is no obstacles in your way of running up towards your opponent, and also patient players tend to approach more than passive players. And how do you counter aggressive? With passive play. If you can stop them before they get close enough with essentially a get away from me attack, or something, or sometimes even SIGs, you block their attempt from pushing any further. So now we've created a rock, paper, scissors dynamic. Passive beats aggressive, aggressive beats patient, and patient beats passive. If your opponent is using rock, you play paper. If your opponent is playing paper, you play scissor. And if your opponent is playing scissor, you play rock. And just like that, you are always one step ahead and winning at all situations. When I understood this concept, which is not long ago by the way, everything started clicking and it all made sense now to why I can destroy every single passive player, and then I get shit on by every single aggressive Azuri, every Ragnar and Caspian player. Like, I lost to these type of characters so many times and not even understanding why, you know. But also, I look at those same exact players, same exact like aggressive players, and I wonder why and how the hell they are losing and complaining about passive play. And when I understood this concept, it all just started making sense. For a long time I thought there are only 3 playstyles. Turns out there's actually 4, and the best one being the adaptive playstyle, where you swap between the other 3 playstyles mid-game. Do you fucking imagine? Just so that you can beat the specific opponent you're facing. You don't want to be relying on only one playstyle and then get demolished when someone knows how to counter it, you know. This is not an easy task at all. But just like anything else, honestly, with enough practice, you will get better and it will become easier to implement over time. I say it's not easy because you get to a point in ELO where you start facing some opponents who use more than one playstyle, intentionally or naturally, it doesn't matter. Some players do that, you know, and you have to adapt really, really fast, otherwise you will lose. Also, sometimes you'll face some players who will adapt to your adaptation, meaning he's doing the same shit as you know, you're not special. For example, the other day I was spotting a Valhallan player, and I noticed a couple of his habits. I started punishing it a couple of times, but then suddenly, out of nowhere, he stops doing them, you know. And I get confused because I didn't know what to do now, and I ended up losing the game, even though I had such a big lead. This might be off topic a little bit, but I noticed that high elo players are so good at identifying what they're doing wrong mid-game and adapt right away, which is something you can only learn through experience, honestly. Number 7, reading in neutral / hit confirming. In this section, we will be discussing how to identify your opponent playstyle and how to create a game plan so that you can counter them effectively. In one of my previous videos that talk about reading, I explain how the first talk of the game should be dedicated to understanding your opponent and collecting information about them. Earlier, we discussed how your neutral tools are the safe moves you use when you don't have enough data about your opponent to go for a riskier option. And this is a process called hit confirming. Hit confirming is basically using your neutral tools to confirm whether you've not hit your opponent or not, and if so, follow up to a bigger punish or lead yourself to a better position. And remember when and how you've hit them so that you can duplicate the situation later on in the match. Same thing if you miss the attack. If you miss the attack, ask yourself, why did it miss? You will be able to see why you didn't land your attack, and then you can adjust accordingly depending on the reason. Maybe your opponent jumped. Well, then you just switch to the option that will allow you to cover that space. However, just because your neutral tools are generally safe to throw, that doesn't mean they can't be punished, so be careful with that. Next part of the hit confirming process is the other way around, where you watch carefully how does your opponent like to approach and attack you, what playstyle do they use the most, and then use the informations we've discussed earlier to counter them. However, this needs a lot of practice. Again, this needs a lot of practice and time to master, unless you're already like 2400 and very used to thinking and experimenting different stuff in game. Otherwise, this will take quite a while to implement properly. Now, this video can be helpful and all, but the truth is that I don't know you personally as a player, and I can't tell you exactly what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. So, if you want custom coaching specific to your situation, where we will discuss how you can improve faster, speed up your progress,